Hey guys, FleetFeed here with another War Selection video. This one's a 3v3 mini team match where I actually use the build that I showed last week, where I open into Asia and a 35 warrior pressure. You'll see it in action and in a game, and I'll kind of talk you through what I was thinking when I was doing stuff. Just as a forewarning, sorry for the audio quality issues. It turns out that I was actually, when I was recording this game, recording my audio, I had my microphone on, so you'll actually hear all my clicking and tapping, and the occasional chair squeak, and some other stuff that we'll get into later. You'll actually hear my reaction at the end of this game. It's funny. Anyways, you'll notice a lot of similar things if you watched last week's video. For how to open here, I'm starting getting my warehouse down at Barry's, getting somebody building huts everywhere, and trying to scout my starting area just to see what resources I'm working with and plan my base layout before I start running over to scout my opponents. I am set up in what the map is showing us looks like the back line for my team, so I started building those huts behind. It's clear that they're coming from only that one side. My scout couldn't go very far to the bottom left, so we're all six of us packed onto a small-ish island. We could tell that at this point just based on how the map looks and the fact that our front line's borders are touching. So have our apparently more than 8 people on food. We're cutting back down to 8 people on food. We're just above 110 food, so we'll also be starting up our firewood research pretty quick here. And I'm actually starting up, some warehouses earlier, just because my starting spawn here is kind of weird, and I need to get my wood online in a decent capacity fairly quickly. So there you go. I'll see. That was me queuing up the warehouse upgrades, just to get them going. It's a bit late, but not the end of the world. I'm in a pretty fortunate position here as far as defense goes. There's a lot of places that I could put my temple that are both good on resources and easy for me to defend, because I've scouted so far that there's no way to the left around, so if I can build my temple where I just placed it there, if I get attacked by warriors, they can never snug my temple because they won't make it through there, and it just makes it way easier for me to defend. I have one less vulnerability to worry about. This guy's just blindly sending a scout through, so just a little bit of micro to get my workers to shield him from going in that angle means I could probably kill that scout before it gets any good vision, and the less that the enemy knows about my base, the better. I'm sure that you've seen in your own games when you can see where somebody is building in the fog of war, and you can guess what the kind of building it is based on the positioning. So if I just stop that scout there, that means that I have all this space back here to build fight pits, and they won't know that I have fight pits. Unfortunately, there's another scout coming, and I don't have my guys set up there anymore, so chances are they're going to get a full scout of my base. But if the second and third person were lazy with their scout, they just wouldn't see, and most of my base would still be under fog of war, and they wouldn't be able to tell that I'm building a bunch of fight pits. That's kind of a mixed blessing, because sometimes you want them to see that you're building fight pits and get scared and overreact, but in any case, it doesn't hurt for me to try and learn how to micro and see when I can stop scouts and when I can't. So that was an experiment for me. It worked. I could stop it. So I did. In this case, I'm moving the space of my temple because my workers, for some reason, were refusing to go through that tree line. So that's fine. Just move the temple over here. It's almost equally defensible. It'll still be behind my whole base. It is close to water, so it means that if this game goes late, I am vulnerable to an attack by sea. But generally, I'll be faster in tech than most players if I want to be, and tech wins the sea. If you're ahead in Aegis in the sea, basically every Aegis ships beat the previous Aegis ships, with the exception of catapult ships, which basically can beat everything. Machine gun trawlers obviously destroy them, but you still need to micro the machine gun trawlers, or they don't actually trade that effectively. I also don't actually have any shore here, so it's kind of hard for me to go water. So maybe building a temple here was a mistake. But I didn't have terribly many options, and this helps me be safe from ground assaults early. And that's kind of what I was going for. So you can see that I'm starting up my fight pits because I've got my temple down, I've got my age research started. There's an inconvenient boar that was hiding in the trees over here that I didn't notice. He's going to slow down my stuff a little bit, but I can also turn him into food for my workers, so it'll all work out in the end. I wasn't sure where he would run back to. I wasn't sure if he would just ignore me from there, but he didn't want to, so we have to kill him. It's pretty easy to kill a worker or kill a boar with just workers. with a little bit of micro. You can see here, just pull the one that was getting hit away. In this case, I'll pre-select the ones that are getting hit and try and move them away. Yeah, I think that I actually end up losing this worker, which is kind of funny, but whatever. Yeah. So normally you would just pull the ones that are working away, and normally actually what I'll do is I'll just tell them to not participate in the fight anymore at all. I'll just tell them to go harvest wood somewhere, because then I don't have to worry about them getting eaten by the boar like that. There I was greedy, and again, learning, so I ended up paying for it. I ended up losing a guy because my micro isn't good enough to keep the boar away from him and manage who the boar is attacking. Here you'll see some of the slight deviations in this execution of the build compared to the one that I showed in the video, where it's a little more considerate in when I'm starting the upgrades of things, with the idea being that I can prevent myself from hitting 0 food, meaning everything is a little bit faster. It should be the case that my warriors are out just before 9 minutes and 20 seconds, or the 35th one pops out at before 9 minutes and 20 seconds with this build. I haven't been, one of the things that I've been noticing and watching myself play more lately is I do not do a good job of actually scouting. I don't pay very much attention to what other people are doing. Like you'll see my camera, this is my live gameplay. I'm not looking at the front line. I'm not seeing what their front line is building right now. And you'll see that in this game it kind of hurts me because if I had looked at the front line and saw what they have, if you're looking at the minimap right now, you'll see a small blob of red show up. Excuse me again, which means that the enemy has warriors or slingers or something. I'm not looking at it. I'm not verifying what those are. Just looking at the minimap now, I can tell you that they're almost certainly warriors and maybe slingers, just based on how fast they're moving. But again, I should be getting this information. I have the tools to deal with that if I was paying enough attention, but I wasn't. So I'm slow in getting my warriors up to help defend my allies. Otherwise, I'm doing the normal stuff that's all part of the build. I got my population upgrade started, I got my vision upgrade coming, which I could actually skip this game if I wanted to, but there's nothing that I can get really instead of it that would do me any good. So I'm just going to get it this time anyway. It honestly is just smooths the build out. It isn't actually good for me this game, but it's muscle memory, and I'm kind of not thinking about it too much. I still haven't looked at what's happening on the front lines. There's been a blob of red for a while. This is just me needing to get better at the game, and probably something that everybody needs to get better at. Is I have no idea that they're under attack right now. I'm just not paying attention. Now I finally look up, and I'm finally starting to send out guys. And it looks kind of bad for my allies. He's got a couple of bulwarks down, which is good, but it looks like his fight pits were at the front of his base, which means that they're getting targeted down so he can't defend himself. Good, Thunder is typing. Yeah, but it looks like he is going to take massive damage, if not just outright die. I could have helped prevent this. I could have helped slow it down, and it would have gone better overall for my allies here. I kind of did a disservice with having this build, having the tools to help them, but being too slow in just my map awareness to get in there and help them. You'll also notice that this means, because we're seeing massive amounts of aggression, we're seeing that it's going to change the dynamic of my build. Where previously in the video we said, okay, we never want to fight anything with our stone warriors that wants to fight us. That's not true right now, because I want to fight the stone warriors that are attacking us. I'm pretty confident that my build is more economically set up to push me forward than anybody else's. Like, I don't know of a warrior-based build that's more economic than this. So I'm pretty confident with, hey, if we just hold off this warrior attack and keep my other ally alive, we'll be in a pretty good spot. You'll also notice I just queued up 4 more barracks, which actually is 5 more barracks, and I'm going to upgrade my fight pits to barracks, because I know that my opponents have opted for early aggression, probably aren't super great at transitioning out of it, so I'm expecting an Iron Age heavy spears timing to do a lot of work here, because it's really hard if you're not prepared for it to defend and like be up on speed in that Iron Age. Chances are this was a Stone Age based attack that was still on 60 supply, which means that they're in a lower workers count than I am. And that also means that they're going to have a harder time aging up, because you need to hit those worker marks in order to age up faster. Here, unfortunately, despite my I don't think that my ally there should have left, but my ally leaves the game anyways. He lost half of his workers, so his game was kind of ruined. He could have stayed into it and done a lot of help for me. Like, we could have still teamed up and won the game, but he definitely would have played a smaller part in it. Maybe he just didn't want to play from that because, I mean, he'd lost most of the fun of the game and was now forced to play catch-up for the rest of the game. But with all of that done, I have a simple goal here with the fact that I'm now solo against 3 players. I want to pull them apart as much as possible and give them as little time as possible for them to build up an attack and come at me. Because if they come at me, all 3 of them at the same time, it's very easy for them to coordinate. It's very easy for them to just outright kill me. If I run at them with all of my warriors, and I built an extra couple of rounds of warriors, so I did not just stick to 35 here. I used my fight pits to build a little bit more just so that I could continue to be aggressive. Because I did that, I now have all of these units that I can run around to all of the little corners of this base, and look at how many units are forced to chase me back, because they know they can't lose their entire economy, and they also know that the time it takes them to run all the way across the map and get to me, I'll be able to produce towers or barracks or something to defend myself. So I'm just trying to pull them apart as much as possible. You'll see that my units that are getting chased by the biggest number of spears are going as far away as possible from my base. Like, they're there, they still won't win that fight, but they're still running further and further and further back, trying to pull them as far away from my base as possible. This should open up vulnerabilities where I can hit them elsewhere. Normally I will not do this, but again, because one of my primary goals right now is to get as much space as possible, keep them away from my base by keeping pressure on, and give them as little time to think and set up as possible, I'm building grounds of just regular Asian spearmen, which are not a good unit. Stone warriors are better than they are for the most part. You'll also see, as a byproduct of me running stuff around, is eventually they got frustrated and said, oh, it's just 2 warriors. What can 2 warriors do? We'll go attack instead because we got to go pressure this guy. My dead ally, fortunately, has a bunch of towers set up for me, but I can be annoying with 2 warriors still. He has a bunch of workers that are trying to farm iron here, but I'm not going to let him. There's also, you'll see in a second, there are 3 boars immediately behind his TC, and I'm going to be annoying as possible with them. Yeah, see, there, he's just got some misfortune there. But I'll just keep pulling boars towards him, and I can micro stuff around. My macro in this game is pretty fire and forget, so I've got my barracks rallied spears to a place where I know that they probably have vulnerable workers. They don't have that much space of the map. They haven't taken more space with towers or anything. So I know places that I can hit and harass. So you can see my spears there have killed some great number of workers, and I also almost 2-to-1 outnumber the spears that came to defend there. So I could probably just take that fight, and if it ever looks like I can't take that fight, I'll just send the spears all over the map again. Try pull them apart as much as possible, give them as little time as possible to settle up and go into a Legionnaire timing or their own heavy spears timing, or just defensive with towers and boats so they can get up their economies so they can age up the Middle Ages and do anything in the Middle Ages. Just as much aggro as possible, try pull them apart, try keep my own base going, and try get my way into the Iron Age so I can get to that heavy spears timing, because I don't think that they'll be able to hold it. You can see my own economy struggling a little bit in this process. I have a whole bunch of workers on that one tree line. We keep cutting to it, and they are not being as efficient as they could be. There are too many workers in that one spot. I just haven't taken the time to set up that economy. I don't play fast enough for it. There are places I could put warehouses. I just haven't. I don't have the APM for it effectively. Here you can see that of my 2 warriors that were being annoying, one is still alive and being annoying, so he'll keep poking at stuff. I'm not actually sure. This guy is struggling to keep up. He's got a poultry yard that hasn't produced any chickens. I don't actually know how those guys survived that previous spear combat. Yeah, there's the overworking workers. But I should be just about hitting that Iron Age timing, or that, yeah, there you go. Halfway up on the heavy spears upgrade. Yeah, there we go. Finally start fixing that economy problem. You can see I have another trail of green heading across the map. So this is partly to see what they've got going on, and partly to keep them in their base and keep them trying to defend something that I'm doing rather than them having time to attack me. In this case, I'm just trying to make as much... the micro here is to make your concave as big as possible, so as many of your spears are attacking and as few of theirs are. If all of your melee units are in a tiny ball, not as many of them will attack as if you have the like surrounding concave around them. That's kind of like an RTS standard. You can see that they're sending a crap ton of units at me, and if you're paying attention to the minimap, again, map awareness on my part, there's a blob of red in my base that I go, oh, there's a blob of red. Fortunately, I have a whole bunch of barracks, and I did at least notice before they started killing any of my workers. And Asia is actually really quick to respond, so the normal response that you've seen many a player do, slap up a bunch of towers. In this case, unlike the previous game, I don't forget to rally my barracks into my own base and get them involved. So, as is, I got a number of, a number of towers set up. I'm starting to defend this well, and now my goal, I have failed in previous games, but my goal is to get my workers as far away from danger as possible and just lose as few as possible. So I have over there by my TC, I have a bunch of spearmen, and they're not microing well enough to fight my workers instead of my spearmen, so that's relatively safe. Otherwise, I'm doing a decent job of holding. I lost a few workers to bad pathing, but it's not the end of the world. It's just... lost my thought. It's just what I had to do to survive. Now I can start getting my workers where they need to go. Make sure my economy is still online, and you can see I've got the reserve for Iron Spearmen starting to trickle in. This also means that I've built a giant, massive regular spearmen just before my Iron Age spearmen start, which sucks for me because ideally I would want all of these spearmen to be heavy spears rather than regular Asian spearmen. Heavy spearmen are a heck of a lot more useful. It's not what happened. It's not the end of the world, but it does mean that I have to burn through these weaker units before I can start rallying in the heavy spearmen. Because I'll only have 8, as you can see with the first wave there. It's a bit unfortunate, but it's what I've got. I also am in the Middle Ages now, though, so I can start getting that next population upgrade, which means that I'll have space for some fishing boats. So I'll build a couple of docks here just so I can get fishing boats, pad my supply. Ideally, I would also be sending some workers forward here to start building towers in the front line just to lock up the map. I know that I'll have enough, or slightly enough resources to build a tower. I have the vision upgrade that I got way earlier in the game. So if I manage to get a tower up here, then I get to see what they're doing sooner. And here you'll see some of why heavy spears in Asia, if they don't have a unit to deal with it, is pretty silly. It's like, I'm fighting a lot of units right now. I can't get past this line that they've set up of towers, but the Asian towers will do so little damage to my heavy spears that I'm not too worried about it, and I want to get rid of my other spearmen anyways. They're effectively just wasted supply. They'll do something, but they won't do very much. And if I sent them around to the back of something, it takes very little for my opponent to defend, so they don't apply much pressure either. But yeah, we're back to a phase where I have a stronger timing. My units should be better than their units for the current time being. So I am going to just keep applying pressure and keep attacking and keep applying pressure, and the same thing as before, trying to make it so they can't get to any good, important timing that would basically outright kill me. If I'm on the aggressive, if I'm on the forward foot, they have to respond to me, and I have more time to do stuff then. If I was in my base, if I had walled off and built towers, I would have lost all the way up to the front door of my base. I wouldn't have any of that map to work with. And they would be able to mount an attack on me so much sooner than they have been, just because I had the opportunity to see it so much earlier. I had people attacking their base when they attacked me. It just gives me that much more of the map to control and that much more time and space to work with if all of my stuff is up here on this kind of a map layout. Yeah. Here's the glory of heavy spears. I'm fighting into a bunch of other spearmen. I haven't actually clicked them to verify that they're not heavy spears themselves, but judging by how my stuff is cutting through with minimal losses, it's pretty clear that my spearmen are heavy spearmen. His spearmen are just regular European and regular Asian spears. So yeah, I won that fight in a dominating fashion, and I'm now set up to do some push. I see he walled off on the left there. If he has walled off all of these chokes, then I'm in a bad situation, but there are weird little holes in these trees all over the place, so I don't think that he can very easily. In the name of preventing that from happening, I'll break off a chunk of my units and send them through again, force them to respond to what I'm doing, be on the forward foot as much as possible, keep slowly transitioning up into the next timing that I can do, which is, as Asia, definitely elephants and ram elephants. If I can fit ram elephants through any of this, or if I can tear down those walls with ram elephants, they shouldn't have anything to stop it. If they can't stop heavy spearmen, they certainly can't stop ram elephants. They have even more armor and are even thicker and just will stomp buildings. Towers will eventually deal with heavy spears, especially if they get to middle-aged towers, but rams can crush through even middle-aged towers. And with my extra supply and a couple of fishing boats trickling out, I actually have the food supply and the economy to produce that, so... At this point, I broke his front lines, so we're going to go back to the old warrior tactics of sending a little bit of everything everywhere, force them to respond. I'm literally sending 2 or 3 heavy spears in pretty much all places. It's even more effective than doing it with warriors, because heavy spears actually just straight win fights against a lot of things, whereas warriors don't do that well. Like 2 warriors against 5 workers isn't going to go phenomenally for the warriors. The workers, or if they're Bronze Age workers, at least they can kind of hold their own. But yeah, look at the mini-map right now. Look at how amusingly dotted with green it is. There are little bits of people everywhere just trying to pull their attention across to many spots. It's really, really hard as a defender to keep track of this kind of stuff. I've been in that situation before. I know that it's super annoying to deal with, so I'm going to give them something super annoying to deal with. Because I got fishing boats online, that right there was just transferring some of my workers off of food onto stone, because fishing boats will take up that food burden, and it just frees my workers up to do something else, without costing me any time in my town center to build workers, because I can build them as fishing boats. I don't actually know... I didn't get the fishing speed upgrade yet. I don't actually even know if I do get it, but I don't think that I do. In any case, at this point, still just rallying. I have not upgraded my barracks because heavy spearmen are much better than almost every other option. They crush they crush the Iron Age, Bronze Age towers. They do really well against most Iron Age units, except for Axemen, obviously. They don't do fantastically against Legionnaires or Swordsmen either, but they do okay against Swordsmen. It's mostly just Axemen that would flatten them, or if one of their 3 players was building ranged units. One of their big failings in this game is just not having somebody that was dedicated to building archers. Archers are the better defensive unit, and I think that they thought that they could just run me over by amassing a bunch of melee stuff and running at me, which is probably the case in most games. Just, I had a good enough start and a good enough economy this game, and my allies bought me just enough time that I could carry on from the mid-game and apply pressure. If I hadn't been able to apply pressure, if they had already walled up or something, I would have been so doomed. It would have been so hard for me to keep them back. They could just amass any number of force on their side of the map, and the fact that there are 3 of them means that they have effectively 3 times as much supply as I do. So it doesn't really matter what you're attacking with if you're attacking with 3 times as much stuff. But they never got the opportunity to do that. They could never attack me, all 3 of them coordinated at once, because I kept pulling them back, and it's really hard for them to coordinate, whereas I'm only coordinating with myself. And at this point in the game, I'm pretty confident that I'm going to win, probably. I'm half expecting to see a bunch of little red dots on my minimap of a bunch of catapult chips just waltzing into my base and throwing a bunch of rocks at my buildings, but I haven't actually seen any of them get to the Middle Ages yet, so I don't think that that's extremely likely. I just know that it's a very real possibility of me losing the game that way. So I've been keeping half an eye on their docks just to try and make sure that they're not getting to the middle age there while I'm running everything everywhere. And it doesn't look like any of them have gotten to the middle age, and any of them are going to be able to make catapult ships. And you can see I'm slaughtering their workers all over the place. Like at this point in the game, I probably have about 2/3 of the economy of their entire team just as myself alone, which is going to be really hard for them to deal with. Plus, I'm ahead in tech by a lot. Like I'm an age ahead of any one of them. And that's going to give me so many tools to beat them. You can see that one of the Asian players has finally got a bunch of... he's finally aged up, so we know that he's Middle Ages now. I don't know what are those... They're the East Asian spearmen, I just don't know what they're called. Yeah. But they're not that threatening. Like, they're decent units. They'll beat up my... They're an answer to my heavy spearmen, but my heavy spearmen have been out and wreaking havoc for quite a bit of time. And again, if you look at the minimap, they've got a couple of different locations of stuff to deal with. It's hard for them to do that. That poultry yard in the bottom left is currently being stabbed by a bunch of spearmen. And I've got elephant rammers coming out, and these their spearmen certainly do not deal with the elephant rammers in any way. So I finally got my workers to come forward and actually build some towers up front here to take advantage of my vision upgrade. I could have done this quite a bit of time ago. It makes it even harder for them to push forward. It gives me much more map space to work with. I just had too much going on and I don't play fast enough. It's another thing that I can take away from this game is like, hey, look at how I played, and look how I could directly benefit from being able to play faster, and it incentivizes me to take a look at things where it's like, I do a lot of the what's called cloning, where you'll see me select a bunch of people, and then shift-click a bunch of the portraits in the window, so it'll deselect them, and I don't think that I do that terribly fast, so it might be worth it for me to take some time practicing and learn how to do that quicker, click stuff quicker, because if I can play faster, then I can do more of these things that I know that I'm missing, and I would find the time to make a little controlled group of workers and get those workers to go forward and build a tower earlier. But in this case, I'm pretty damn proud of how this build went, the tools that it gave me to get to this point, and how I had a strategy, which is kind of my preferred playstyle anyways, of just pressuring as much as humanly possible so that my opponent doesn't have a time to get to their timing cleanly. It's a lot harder in this game to get to your timing cleanly, and there's a lot of timings in this game that if you get to them late, they're bad. So if you can apply pressure, if your opponent doesn't get a chance to wall off and you get a chance to run in like this, it's a pretty good feeling. So, thanks for watching, guys, and please join the live me that just finished playing this game in a victory laugh. Oh, god damn.